The ILS minimums and categories. We talked about the categories briefly when we were talking about the marker beacons, but not what the categories are. These categories are nothing but different sets of minimums. The lowest authorized minimums, which is the decision height, and visibility. These are the things that changes. So what really happens is when you follow the vertical glide slope down to your decision altitude, you have to have a minimum amount of visibility to continue from decision altitude to land. This decision altitude and the visibility required change with the category of ILS. Let's take a look. Keep an eye on this table while I explain the categories of an ILS. The category 1, the decision height is 200 feet, meaning the decision height is 200 feet AGL, and the runway visual range or the visibility required is 2400 feet. With the touchdown zone and centerline lightings available on the runway and working, the RVR required reduces to 1800 feet. It also reduces to 1800 feet with the use of autopilot or a flight director or a heads-up display. It is 1800 feet with 200 feet AGL as the decision height. There is special authorization category 1 for which DH will become 150 feet and RVR will become 1400 feet, but that is special authorization. Then comes category 2. Category 2 ILS has a DH of 100 feet as you can see and RVR of 1200 feet with auto land or heads up display to the touchdown and noted on authorization. RVR can be 1000 feet. Don't worry, I'm gonna list out all of this in the notes below so that you can read after watching this video. Special authorization for category 2 with reduced lighting is DH of 100 feet and RVR of 1200 feet with auto land or heads up display to touchdown and noted on authorization. In this case, the touchdown zone lighting, centerline lighting, LSF2 are not required. That is why it is a special authorization category 2. Then comes category 3. Category 3 has 3 parts within the category 3. Category 3A, category 3B and category 3C. Now category 3A has either no decision height or a decision height below 100 feet and an RVR of not less than 700 feet, which is basically sometimes it can even be zero decision height or decision height below 100 feet and RVR required will be at least 700 feet. Category 3B does not have a decision height or has a decision height below 50 feet and an RVR of less than 700 but more than 150. Then comes category 3C. Category 3C does not have a decision height and no RVR required. That is category 3C. These are the categories of instrument approach. Now you have a basic idea of what instrument landing system is. What are the components? What are the guidance equipment? How do we use these guidance equipment? Now let's take an example of an ILS approach or multiple examples of an ILS approach, and then we will determine how to actually read the approach plate and how to fly an ILS approach. This is also the first time you are going to be learning about approach plates in itself. So I'm going to explain the different components of approach plate along with explaining the ILS approach. Let's get started.